Okay, we're recording.
Okay.
Uh, so Sally, thank you so much for taking time to meet with me today. Um, the people watching this video don't know who you are or what makes you tick and why you're a social worker and where you work, where we are today. So if you would take a couple minutes and sort of share with them who exactly is Sally?
Yep.
Yeah, why are you a social worker?
Absolutely. I'm Sally Freedy. I am a MSW, CCLS, LCSW, and RPT. So I got my undergraduate degree in child life, and that works primarily with children in a hospital setting and helping them cope with procedures and diagnoses, things like that.
Right.
And then my master's is in social work.
Okay.
So I'm certified in both of those areas.
Okay. And you work, where is it we're at today?
I work at Voices of Courage Children's Advocacy Center here in St. Joseph, Missouri.
Okay, all right. And your population is primarily,
Our agency covers children 3 to 18, and out of the 3 counselors that we have here, I tend to cover the younger age group. So my population is generally 3 to 12.
3 to 12, okay, all right. So why social work? Why social work? And when did you graduate?
I graduated in 2007.
Okay, so you've been, it's 2019 at this recording, so you've been out 12 years.
Mhm.
So why social work?
After my undergraduate, that was so specific in child development and working with kids in a hospital setting, I had limited myself quite a bit in the areas that I could work in. So I decided to get my master's degree in something that was broad. And a MSW allows me to work with lots of different populations in lots of different areas doing lots of different things.
So this video is going to be for a foundation class for people that are just starting that journey. Um, any words of wisdom for them on why social work is a good route?
I like it because it's so broad. You can
Yeah, it really is.
use
really
the
is.
basics in so many different areas, and that's what I really liked about it. You just take that basis that you learn in your foundations class and just apply it in your specific setting.
Can you give me an example of where you maybe done that recently?
I work in the area of trauma, so I work specifically with children who have experienced trauma. So in my continuing education, I have focused my studies and continuing education to work with play therapy, children who've experienced grief and sexual and physical abuse. But it's the same as if I were working with an adult who has experienced sexual trauma or physical trauma as a child. So I can work with both of those populations using the same techniques.
Okay, all right. And how long have you been at Voices of Courage?
I started here in 2015.
Okay, so been out of school 12-ish years, been here going on 5 years.
Mhm.
So what do you see in the next 5 years? Not that you have this, magical crystal ball. So,
What I'd like to do is work toward combining my 2 degrees much more and helping children in the hospital setting and working to prevent trauma. Probably with like their safe exams that they get after they've experienced disclosed abuse or after a traumatic event and they might come into the emergency room or something like that. So I think that's something that might come into the future, building a relationship between the hospital here in town and our agency.
how many face-to-face hours a week do you average with kids here at Voices of Courage?
I average about 20 to 25 is a big week with face-to-face hours.
Right, okay. And I know that 20 hours, 25 hours face-to-face equates to 40 to 50 hours of actual work when you've got case management and phone calls and progress notes and treatment plans and all of those things. So that's a pretty full week.
It
So-
is.
So,
Yeah, we have no shortage of children and families who are needing services.
yeah, that's the part that I think eats at everybody's soul just a little bit. So,
It is.
all right. Okay, well, we're going to sign off here. So, greetings, everybody. I'm here with Ashley Henry, who is an MSW and an LCSW, and she is in the middle of a job transition. She is beginning at Johnson County Mental Health, but we're going to talk to her more today about her last 4 years, which was in hospice care and her experiences there. So, thanks, Ashley, for helping me out with this project. If you would maybe share with the students why social work. I know a lot about you. I know you had a very short career in the Air Force, and you're a mom, but why social work? Why MSW?
Social work is an opportunity that gave me the ability to help others. My entire life has been focused around how can I make things better for other people? How can I help them? And when I was in high school, I took a psychology class that started my trip down this lane. And when I departed from the Air Force, I became connected with another LCSW in the community who really helped shape my path to this career. And I remember calling her up and going, how can I have your job? And as I went
Actually, that sounds a lot like you, by the way. So, I want your job. How can I have it?
Yeah.
Never mind you.
So as I went through my undergrad program, I did spend a lot of time questioning what I wanted to do and why I was doing this. Because originally I was focused on child welfare, but quickly realized that that was not an avenue I wanted to go down, but continued through my undergrad program. And as I graduated, I got connected with the aging population. And that really fit. Working with adults, working with the aging, and even coming into the end of life care was an opportunity where I could be a guest in their lives and serve them in one of the most intimate and raw moments of their lives. And it was the greatest gift I could receive and that I could give people. And so I've really enjoyed that opportunity.
Yeah, it's a very difficult population and niche. Probably not for everybody.
No.
How can you tell that it is a good fit for a social worker? I remember you had an intern, and the intern didn't make it through didn't make it through both semesters. Wasn't a good fit for her. So how can you identify that within a young social worker?
So one of the things that I had learned in my journey in hospice was something that I do agree with, and that hospice should be the last job you do. And what that means is that really you should build your foundation of being able to work with others, build your tool belt, know your community resources. And the student that I had, unfortunately, was new to Kansas City and did not know what Kansas City could offer our residents and our patients. And it made it very hard for her to function and serve them. As well, hospice is a very independent role. While we work as an interdisciplinary team, we are out doing visits on our own, and we are silos. And so you have to be very proactive and organized, be able to work under pressure, because you might walk in one day planning to do one thing and it all just goes away and you're doing something else because you're responding to a crisis. And the ability to be flexible and manage your schedule with that level of independence is crucial.
Yeah, I definitely can see that it is a job. I mean, you're with a team. You certainly have people you can ask questions, but it is an independent practice.
Absolutely.
So no doubt about it. Well, thank you. Actually, I really appreciate that. We're going to go ahead and close this segment, and then we'll continue. Hey, class. Moving on forward with another guest presenter. I'm really excited about this presenter. I think you guys will love her. She also is, by the way, a KU alum, so you got that going for you. I'm going to let her introduce herself. She is an LCSW. She works in domestic violence at Rosebrooks. She's going to tell you a little bit about who she is and why she is a social worker. I think we'll be in good shape. So go ahead and get started, Jackie. You have the floor. So.
Hi, class. So my name is Jackie. I am a victim advocate with Rosebrooks Center. I've been at Rosebrooks for 5 years, going on 6. I'm currently a non-residential victim advocate, and so I work with anybody that doesn't live in our shelter. So I came to social work after a variety of degrees, and ultimately landed in a service-driven field. So as far as my master's in social work, my goal as a social worker is to eradicate domestic violence and to advocate for social justice. And so my MSW degree has allowed me to expand that skill set, to provide more in-depth services to my clients and meet greater needs, and also to pursue licensure at the master's and clinical level.
I remember when we were in supervision for licensure, I would tease you a little bit that you were like a jack of all trades. You could be a plumber, an electrician, and a truck driver, and the truth is, you really are a jack of many trades. So, what does the MSW? What has it given you that has allowed you to really take that to the next level?
Sure. Yeah, I think social workers wear so many different hats.
Oh yeah,
And
most definitely.
Yeah, and so I think the master's level really allows you to have a fancier hat. It just allows you to have more tools, more understanding, a better toolbox to pull from, to meet those very nuanced needs as clients present with various situations and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. The MSW gives a lot of tools, but it really takes that practice to start using those tools
Yeah.
and defining them, because not all tools work with all clients. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, all right. Well, we're gonna go ahead and pause here. So this is Jackie, and I'm really excited that you guys get to meet her. She is amazing. Oh, real quick before we continue, show them your tattoo on your wrist, if you don't mind. So it's a blue lantern. So what is that blue lantern to you? Although I know what it is.
The blue lantern is, well, have you done the thing?
No.
Okay. Well, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, well,
Don't spoil it.
I
Just
am.
tell them what it means to you.
To me, this is my right hand. This is my hope. This is what reminds me that when you feel like there is nothing possible that you can do for somebody to help them, you fall back on your most fundamental tool, which is yourself. And to simply be there with somebody in that moment, to share that moment, to try to take some of that weight off of them and just share it, is sometimes the best thing to do. And so that just is my reminder.
That is a great explanation. The Blue Lantern, the power of the Blue Lantern is the power of hope. And I remember a graduate student at UMKC that presented in class during our check-in and said, I don't know how to help this client. They were driving a car which was hit by a train. His girlfriend was killed. He's being charged with vehicular manslaughter. The school hasn't prepared me for this. What do I do? And the classmates pretty much said, be present. Just be present. So that's a pretty powerful tool. All right. Well, everybody, thank you for joining us here with Jackie, and we're going to pause here and then move into the next segment. Hey class, here we are continuing with my guest lecture series. I think I have a treat for you today. This is Erica. She's going to tell you a little bit about herself and why she's a social worker. She works at Restart. And what's interesting is that you did your, were you a practicum student here?
No, I was a case manager.
Case manager here. So Erica sort of come full circle, and she'll tell you about that. She started as a case manager and then moved into clinical work, was a therapist at the Gillis Center, worked with pregnant teens, then sort of jumped back into the shelter world at Synergy, Call Valley, back to Restart, sort of the full circle.
Yes.
So, Erica, why are you a social worker?
So I've thought about this a lot over the years, like how did I get here, right? I initially wanted to go into teaching, and so when I was in my undergrad program at Missouri Western, I wanted to be a teacher, I thought. So my sister was a teacher, so I went and spent a couple days with her in the classroom. And after a couple days in the classroom, I decided I did not want to be a teacher. But I wanted to interact with people in the way that teachers do outside of the education. So I took an intro to social work class, and it intrigued me how social work began as a profession, and the notion behind women just wanting to help those who are underprivileged, who maybe others didn't want to help, reaching out in a way that nobody else was really doing. And so that initially intrigued me into the field. I've stayed in social work. I have my own experiences in life that have made me continue to stay in the field and to want to help different populations. I've worked with a lot of different populations. I've always worked with children and families, has kind of been where my passion is. Even before college, even before getting into a profession, I was always working with kids. And so it's something that I wanted to continue to do to help those kids who didn't have anybody else to help them.
Right.
So that's kind of how I landed in social work.
And I think it's okay to say to the listeners, while you enjoy clinical work, you have a plan where you want to be 5-10 years from now.
Yes.
So
I have started my career in case management, and like you said, I got my master's and did some clinical work. I enjoy clinical work, but it's not something I want to do full time. It was a good experience. I learned a whole lot, but my eventual goal is to continue to move into the administrative piece of things, training other social workers, other staff, and really just managing programs and maybe eventually an agency. But that's the eventual goal, is to stay in administration.
yeah, the irony is that there might be a foundation student at KU watching this video, and 3 or 4 years from now, they may end up working for you.
Okay.
There you go, right?
Yeah, that happens a lot.
Bring it on.
That's
So
right.
make sure in your interview you
Yes.
say you saw Erica
In this video.
in this
Yes.
video. Yeah,
Yes.
that's probably the right thing to do.
Absolutely.
So, all right. Well, thanks, Erica.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
No problem.
Greetings. Welcome to the continued video of guest lectures. Today I have a real treat for you. This is Michelle White. Michelle is a social worker at Truman Hospital, and she has been, how long have you been here at the hospital?
Almost 5 years.
5 years. She's currently, for over a year now, has been working in oncology. Prior to that, you were in a whole different role. So why social work?
So my husband and my dad are both veterans. They both have PTSD. After my husband came back from Iraq and we got the diagnosis, I wanted to do something to give back. So I decided to go to work go to school to become a social worker. During that time, the company that I worked for was undergoing some major changes in the industry, and they ended up closing. So I needed to change paths and change careers. So I decided to check out social work, and that's where I've been ever since.
So it kind of was tugging at your own experiences and your own heartstrings.
Right.
But it's not like you graduated high school wanting to be a social worker. It was something that developed later in
Right. Exactly. If you had asked the post high school me what I want to do, I would have not have said social work. I was initially a journalism major at KU, and that skill set comes in handy as a social worker because there is a lot of writing, a lot of charting, a lot of documentation, but also my skill set from working as a customer service rep and administrative assistant come into play too, because you use those every day. You're trying to prioritize what's important, you're returning calls, you're documenting, you're meeting with people. So those management, administrative skills also come into play.
All right, perfect. All right, well, thank you. Hey class, we're continuing with my series on guest interviewers. Today, I'm joined by Evan Mitchell. Evan is a social worker at KU Med Center. He's been here, how long have you been here?
4 years.
4 years. That was after like 12 jobs in a very short time frame. It's not completely true, but it's felt like it to me as I had to fill out a lot of paperwork. Evan is an LCSW. He did not go to KU. He's not an alum from KU. He is from UMKC, and he is a citizen, right? Because when he was in graduate school, he was a Canadian.
Yeah.
So he's the kindest social worker there ever was. So
Slash Canadian.
/Canadian. So why social work? Why social work?
So it was kind of a journey. Probably everybody has a journey towards finding out what they want to become. Honestly, I just like helping people. Started out undergraduate school, wanted to become a cop. Try to become a cop, got deferred. They told me to go back to get my undergraduate degree before they would take me. This is becoming a Mountie up in Canada. And when I was there, I met 2 social workers teaching in a school of criminology. They opened my eyes to just the field itself and how wide it is in terms of social work, in terms of criminology specifically. Then I moved down to America and met another social worker, Dan. He was a probation officer, and social work is just so broad, and the broad focus is ideal for me because I honestly just like helping people. It's not pigeonholed. It's just whatever comes at you is what you have to work with, and what you have to work with is how you solve problems.
Now, I know, the students won't know, but you basically have worked with all age levels of population. You've worked with kids, child welfare, you work in a hospital, you've worked with people at the end of their life. Is there a population that you're really feeling like is for you right now, this is where you're at in your journey, or do you continue to be pretty flexible in your populations?
Flexible. Yeah, and that goes into, I mean, you can go into a different other conversation about the risks of burnout, but just interest in general. The navigation of who you work with, again, is so broad. I did start out working with kids, younger kids, then adolescents, and then adults, and now older adults. So I'm still on that journey and still kind of absorbing whatever it is what I'm being exposed to.
The other interesting thing about Evan is most of the time that I knew him while he was in supervision for licensure, he always had kind of a side social work hustle. And one of the interesting things about this field, you can get a very nice job, full-time job, but you always have that ability to find PRN work or work on the side. I know when we finished supervision, you were doing group therapy one night, maybe 2 nights a week at Research Psychiatric Hospital. Are you still doing any kind of side social work hustle at the moment?
Still doing the research psych side. Actually went into, so Research HCA of America in Kansas City is fairly large. I'm doing a telehealth. So they have an office in Overland Park, and they have contracts with 17 hospitals around the city, and we screen behavioral health patients who come into the emergency rooms who are at risk of suicide, homicide, or acute psychosis.
And I think if I'm right, in that program, they use these kind of like computer robots. Mm-hmm. So you're in a central location, but you could be seeing someone at Center Point in Independence if there was a psych consult and they needed you to do a screening.
Yeah.
So, all right, that's pretty interesting. So thanks for getting us started here, Evan. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Sorry, I just want that, and it'd be nice and neat.
Hey class, welcome back to another guest lecture. Here to introduce you to Flora Bland Washington. She's a social worker at Rediscover, which is a community mental health center in Kansas City on the south side of Kansas City. How long have you been here?
4 years.
4 years. And she's a KU graduate, she's an MSW. And so, Flora, in this first segment, why social work? Why are you an MSW?
To be honest, I think it was a natural fit for me. I think I've always knew I wanted to be a social worker before I knew what the term social worker meant. Just because of probably how I grew up, watching my dad be like a community worker and always working in the community. And so that was just kind of natural for my family. And so kind of from there, just being a person who really believe in individual rights and wanting to make a change and a difference in our community. And so, just over time, changing my degree from one thing to another, this just really became the perfect fit for what I believe in and what I really wanted to do.
Okay. And in class, you've met social workers that are in hospice care, hospital social work. You will later meet a social worker who works with kids. Flora's interest is persistent mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
People with schizophrenia, people who've struggled a long time, that really is your population that you really enjoy the most.
Yeah.
Why that population?
It really just kind of happened by accident because I started working with children and really had a passion for children, but then saw that I wanted to make more of an impact with the family by working with the parents. Because as I was working with children, you would send them home and there was not a really big change in their environment. And so when I got the opportunity to work at Rediscover, it just seemed like it really kind of clicked for me. And then to with that particular diagnosis, schizophrenia, even though those particular clients, especially in therapy, you might work with that client for a year before you really see what we would consider like a change, either in their behavior or their situation. But it was a great gain for them, and just to see a client go from one place of where society said that, oh, this is their level, this is how far that they can go. But then when you're working with them and you can see that they can eventually progress, or they're seeing them progress, it just became a passion for me. And it just seemed like those were the ones I was getting assigned as well.
All right. And you're in kind of a dual role here at Rediscover. You supervise case managers.
Mm-hmm.
So how many do you supervise?
6.
6.
Yes.
And then you have the capacity to carry a small clinical caseload.
Yes.
Do you like that dual role of being, slash administration and slash still have your foot in the clinical, in the trenches, so to speak?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely do, because I think just being still in the field, it allows me to be a better supervisor, because I can still take or draw from my experiences and share it with my case managers.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Flora. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Hey, class. I'm here today with Trevana Alexander. She loves the camera. She had to go and make sure her hair was good. So she is a senior school sensitive trauma social worker, or something to that effect, with the Kansas City, Missouri School District. So, Trevana, why social work? Why are you a social worker?
Well, social work for me, because it kind of combines both of the worlds that I knew existed. I initially started off in psychology, and it was really a nature versus nurture sort of thing. And as I got further and further into that, I started drawing my own conclusions by looking at the limitations, that it couldn't be one or the other. It has to be a combination of both, and how do those pieces fit together. And so it led me to the world of social work. It really started off in assessing some of my own family dynamics, and then when I got into the child welfare arena as a court-appointed special advocate CASA volunteer, it kind of just brought everything together for me and kind of just led the way to social work.
All right. So, at the end of the day, what's the favorite thing you do?
The best thing and the most favorite thing I like about the work that I do every day is engaging people and building relationships with them.
Right. So you're in a position where you have a caseload,
Mm-hmm.
and you do some management, some supervision of staff.
Right.
So you like keeping your feet in both worlds, the clinical world and the administrative world?
Right. So I think one of the things I've learned in just my practice experiences is the better you get at something, kind of the further removed from it you get. So if you're great at a function in a role, then you get a promotion, but that promotion takes you further away. I think serving in both a clinical and administrative role keeps me grounded in both worlds. So I'm still having the impact of developing policies and procedures and providing supervision that are coaching great social workers in their practice, and then also I'm keeping my feet grounded in the direct practice work through the clinical work, which keeps me abreast of best practices and my skills sharpened.
All right, fair enough. All right, thanks, Trevon. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Hey, class. I am here today with a really special guest. This is Sonia Duran. Sonia is a social worker. She has an MSW and she's an LCSW at Children's Mercy, and she works in the Family Ties program. And she will be here 7 years in December of 2019. So that's a pretty long time. So, Sonia, why are you a social worker? Why social work? Why did you go back to school and get that degree, and what has that meant to you?
I wanted a career where I wanted to help people, so that's why I chose social work.
All right. And what has the MSW allowed you to do?
I was able to get this job here at Children's Mercy, and now I'm working for the TIES program, and so I was able to do that.
Now you bring something special to the TIES program because you are bilingual.
Mm-hmm.
So do you serve bilingual clients?
Yes, I do. In this almost 7 years, I've been able to work with Spanish-speaking clients.
Now, do they have enough services, or do you find that they're pretty marginalized?
Yes, unfortunately, we do need more resources for Spanish-speaking clients. We need more bilingual people. We need more agencies and more services for them.
Now, is your program, does it have all its paperwork in Spanish? Does it have website information in Spanish?
I know we've been working on it. I know we've had the brochures. Now we have them in Spanish, but that's something that we continue working on.
Yeah, because that's important to be able to meet the needs of clients.
Mm-hmm.
So, because you do bring that extra gift given that you're bilingual. So, where did you go to school?
UMKC.
UMKC. And how was that experience for you? And better question, where did you do your practicums at?
At Safe Home. I did, I think I did two. I did two. The first one was with El Centro, and the second one was with Safe Home.
I know Safe Home serves Spanish-speaking clients,
Mm-hmm.
and El Centro does as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you've really been able to use that gift from the beginning. So
Definitely. And I talked with some people. They are a little concerned about who are also bilingual, and they are concerned about, oh, what am I going to do after I'm done with school, with college? And something I would tell them is, don't worry, there is going to be a population that you're going to be able to serve, that you're going to be helping with, because there is a need.
now you primarily work with mothers
Mm-hmm.
and their children.
Yes.
So is that a population that you've always just felt really strong about, or is that something that just developed over time for you?
I've always wanted to work with kids, and with adult women, that's something that's just been coming like over time.
Now I know you've taken workshops and courses in play therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So what tools do you have in your toolkit? You have play therapy, you're bilingual. What else have you added to your toolkit?
Here with the TIES program, we've definitely gotten more education, and we also have the infant mental health certification, and we also have education on trauma.
On trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you pretty much can't go anywhere these days without thinking about trauma, because how many of your moms do you serve have been victims of trauma, whether as adults or as children?
All of them.
All of them. 100%?
Yes.
Not even like 99%? All of them?
100%.
100%. All right. All right. Well, thank you so much, Sonia. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. Hey, class. Special guest today. This is Melanie. She's laughing. And I think she's going to hit me. I hope she doesn't do that. And Melanie is at Truman Hospital. She's been with Truman Hospital total, how many years?
8 years, over 8 years.
8 years. So, and I'm going to let her share with you kind of a little bit about who she is and kind of where she comes from. She is an MSW. She's an LCSW. So, where did you go to school? When did you graduate? And what did you do right out of the gate?
Oh, okay. Well, I got my undergraduate at Antioch College in Yellow Springs, Ohio, and I think I graduated in 1993. And then I got my graduate degree at College of St. Catherine and University of St. Thomas in St. Paul, Minnesota, and graduated in 2001. Right out of the gate, I had been working in an alternative middle school at the time, and so I was a school social worker for 3 years prior, and through grad school and 3 years post grad school, and then that program closed, and I went on to work inpatient child psych after that in Fairview, University of Fairview Hospital.
Okay. Then eventually made it to Kansas City.
And I made it to Kansas City, and I worked for several years at Children's Mercy Hospital and the SCAN program, which is the Section for Child Abuse and Neglect, and it was a clinic for children who've been sexually or physically abused to do exams and interviews and support, and then had some children. Not at work, but at home.
Oh, that's
and
good.
took a little time off, and then I went to, and I started my my job at Truman Medical Center in the mom baby unit, working with moms after delivery through discharge, just doing a whole kaleidoscope of things, including working with moms with mental health, with substance abuse, unstable housing, and adoptions, and then recently, after 8 years in that position, I've transferred here to the clinic, to Futures, which works with children and adolescents, and I'm doing therapy with children and adolescents and their families.
How big is your caseload?
It feels pretty big. It is. So I've started here in July, so I don't even have a full caseload. But I see at least right now about 5 people a day, and I think I'll work up to 7, is my understanding. So.
Well, 7 times 5 is 35
Thanks for doing the math.
face-to-face hours a week.
Yeah.
And in the world of private practice, that'd be a 70-hour work week, because about every hour of face-to-face is another hour of progress notes, treatment plans, phone
Oh.
calls, case management, emails.
That's not
So-
the nonprofit world, though.
So
Yeah,
I know it's just a
Yeah.
little bit different. So
it is. It would be really nice. There's a lot that I do at home, just because also I've been doing something else for all these years, so I'm also kind of catching up and learning so many new things, which I love, but there's not a lot of time to do it at work. But
yeah,
so.
yeah. So why social work? Why aren't you a school teacher or school social work? Why clinical practice with kids?
I mean, honestly, I myself could have used a social worker when I was a kid. So I think that was a lot of the draw to social work. I just knew that there was things I wanted to, and really my passion for social work has changed so much over the years, because I have been practicing now a long time. I think I was very idealistic when I first started. I grew up here in Missouri. I didn't know much, and But where I went to undergraduate, we had to work part of the year in our field. So, you know, my first job was in Chicago at this place called Neon Street Center for Youth, and it was an eye opener for sure.
I bet, yeah.
So, but it didn't kill my passion for social work. It really just, it was a big eye opener as far as who I was as a person and why I wanted to do what I wanted to do, and it made me kind of shift into understanding my own privilege and all these thoughts that I'd had, how those weren't actually very helpful, but I wanted to help, so I've had to learn actual skills to help.
Right,
You know,
right.
and also that, you know, what this profession is. It's not, you know, it's not saving people. It's working to make the world better and us all together being better. So anyway, that's kind of how it evolved.
I think that's pretty powerful. So I appreciate that. Before we close this segment, I just had to throw this out there. So the current director of the SCAN clinic is a UMKC grad,
Oh, I don't know who it is. It's been a long time.
and she's one of my students.
Oh, really?
So there you go, right?
Oh,
Small world.
Yeah,
So-
that is a small world.
All right. Well, thank you, Melanie. I
Mhm.
appreciate it so much.
Okay, thank you.